Yeah. Those pit stops are a really good example. I mean, they changed 4 tires in sometimes less than 2 seconds with 24 people that are involved. And so you can imagine if that's the kind of speed of delivery that you need to have, you don't have time to have a meeting or to talk about, oh, the car is coming in. Okay, you are going to do this, you're going to that. Like the role clarity is already extreme. Like everybody knows exactly what to do, and all of them have to work in sync, like a ballet, like a dance, to make it happen within 2 seconds.
Welcome to Inspired Choice today. I'm Caroline Biesalski and I'm thrilled to have you here. On this show, we go beyond the ordinary, diving into the stories of remarkable individuals from around the globe, leaders, entrepreneurs, authors, and creatives who have made bold choices to pursue their passions. Each guest on Inspired Choice today has a unique journey to share, filled with insights, breakthroughs, and lessons that inspire and uplift. My goal is to bring you real conversations that fuel your own journey, whether you're seeking personal growth, business wisdom, or simply a spark of inspiration to say yes to your own dreams. Thank you for joining us on this journey of transformation and purpose. Now let's get into today's inspiring interview. Hello and welcome, Inspired Podcast community. This is your new episode. My name is Caroline and my today's guest is Juriaan Kamer. And I'm so happy that you are here today with me. Welcome to the Inspired Podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, Caroline. Thank you.
Oh, I trained your name and now but I think it's good. So you are a Dutch organizational change expert dedicated to helping leaders improve outcomes by eliminating inefficiencies like slow decision-making and pointless meetings. As co-founder of Unblock, a modern consultancy, you draw from your experience with adaptive organizations and those with high autonomy. You authored Formula X, a business fable inspired by Formula One racing, and Unblock, Clear the Way for Results, a practical guide for leaders seeking faster decisions and less bureaucracy. Welcome to the Inspired Podcast. Once again, Juriaan Kamer.
Yeah.
I can pronounce it in the German way. That way I'm not confused in my mind. You are from the Netherlands. I'm so happy that you are here. And my first question goes to you. Just a second. What inspired you to draw lessons from Formula One racing for your business fable, Formula X? And how do these principles translate to organizational success?
Yeah, such a great question. The book, I actually started researching Formula One teams many years ago. First I was just a spectator, so I was just watching the races and sitting on the couch or sometimes going to the racetrack, and I had no idea what was going on behind the scenes. But then a bunch of years ago, I think must have been 7 or 8 now, I was invited to join a group of leaders that were going into the factory of Red Bull Racing, one of the bigger teams. And I was able to go and look in the factory and talk to people and learn from how they operate. And I was really blown away by what I saw because, first of all, the size of these teams is enormous. Most teams are over 1,000 people. So that's one team creating 2 cars. So it's like the size of one team is already quite interesting, and that means they have to organize themselves. And similar to most other organizations, they have challenges like how do we collaborate, how do we learn at scale, how do we lead a group of 1,000 people into the same direction. And they have found really interesting and effective ways to do that. Since then I've been tapping into the world of Formula One as a source of inspiration and wrote down some of those lessons into Formula X that I co-authored with Rini van Solingen. And I think one of the things Formula One teams are really good at is the speed of innovation and learning. All of these teams are operating in an extremely competitive environment, and it's also completely transparent how they are doing. Right. So if you make a mistake as a team, everyone, like 1 billion people that are watching the sport, is able to see it immediately. So there's extreme clarity of success and failure, and throughout the year they're constantly upgrading and updating their cars to get slightly faster than the competition. And I'm talking about like hundreds of a second or tenths of a second that they can gain through very simple and small marginal gains. And the way they do it, because that's where my field, that's what is interesting to me, is how do you organize that? How do you build a culture of learning and innovation? And what I've learned is that one of the things Formula One teams do is they have a rhythm of an operating rhythm of built-in learning events in their system. So, for example, if they go to the racetrack, they have already pre-planned over 50 meetings that are preset that are just focused on learning and reflecting about what just happened. So they spend much more time reflecting on what's going on rather than executing. And that balance is completely different in most business organizations.
I think we cannot imagine how it works if we don't experience this, right? Because
Yeah.
my thinking now, when I think about, and I witnessed, or I'm a little, let's say, a little fan of Formula One as well. I never been to a race, but since
Mm-hmm.
for 30 years now, I watch it on television, and, and so I know those processes, or you see this when they change the wheels or something,
Yeah.
or something happens. So you said 50 times of learning, like
Yeah.
processes or circles, loops, something
Yeah.
like that, pre-planned.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Those pit stops are a really good example. I mean, they change four tires in sometimes less than 2 seconds with 24 people that are involved. And so you can imagine, if that's the kind of speed of delivery that you need to have, you don't have time to have a meeting or to talk about, oh, the car is coming in. Okay, you are going to do this, you're going to that. Like, the role clarity is already extreme. Like, everybody knows exactly what to do, and all of them have to work in sync, like a ballet, like a dance, to make it happen within 2 seconds. And if you look at the slow motions of these pit stops, oftentimes the wheels are already loose before the car stops. So the car is coming, the wheel gun already goes into the rim of the tire, and it gets loosened before the car stops. So, like, there's all like these super small things, and they've been able to get to this performance by doing it and practicing and repeating it every day, 10 times in the morning, 10 times in the evening. And every single pit stop is analyzed, is videotaped, is analyzed, is talked about, is improved upon. So yeah, that's how you get to these amazing levels of performance, if you just focus a lot on improving yourself.
Wow, I love that. It's a good advice. It's not about learning 100 different things. It's about learning one thing,
Yeah.
like perfect, right?
Yeah. Although what is also interesting about pit stops and Formula One teams is that the people that are in the pit stop team, they have other roles as well. So yes, it's about specialization, but it's also about acknowledging that. So for example, if you're the tire changer at one of the Red Bull cars, one of the tire changes is actually a truckie, and he's responsible for driving all the cargo back and from between the different circuits, which means that during the race weekend itself, there's nothing he can do. So what does he do? He takes on a different role, and he's the part of the pit stop crew. So you see that all these people have alternative roles as well, that they can hold. And I think that's one of the principles that I also try to bring to organizations, is that we, instead of focusing on these singular job titles and function profiles, we are a bit more flexible, and we allow people to take on different roles in different teams.
That's a great point. I think that eliminates also titles. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah, exactly. There's many companies out there that are doing this, that people just don't know what to put on their LinkedIn profile as a title, because it's just all sorts of things. And or you have to list all the roles that you have, which is also possible. But yeah, it becomes really interesting, because it's like you're giving people a workplace where people can vote with their feet, so to say, so they can decide what is the role that I want to take, what is a role I want to let go of and give back to the organization to for somebody else to pick up. And I think it's a really powerful paradigm shift that allows you to get people into the work that they think they can contribute best to and are energized by.
Do you have a word for that?
It's like a marketplace of roles and projects is how I would call it. Yeah.
Yes, or also marketplace of opportunities where
Yeah.
because you have a role, but you can change it
Yeah.
anytime
Yeah.
you like to. I like that. I never heard of that before, and I'm impressed about how you can not you, but you certainly, but you can manage a 1,000 heads team of Formula One supporters, not supporters, workers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Engineers
love
and
that.
technicians. Yeah.
Wow. Let's have a look at my next question, what it says. In your new book, Unblock, you focus on reducing bureaucracy and speeding up decision making. What
Hmm.
are some of the first steps leaders can take to implement these changes in their organization? And one more thing, you mentioned it before because you learned it or you observed it in the Formula One because they have to make quick decisions, right?
Yeah.
In a split second or something. And now the transition, what do we learn for organizations?
Yeah. So I think the Formula One teams, they understand that they have to optimize for speed in the way they work. Right. They cannot afford a decision to take 2 or 3 weeks, or they cannot afford an organization where you have to get permission from 5 steering committees to get something done. And if you're watching the video behind me, there's a sign which I often refer to, which is I tried to be innovative once, but I got stuck in meetings, which is unfortunately the truth in some places where if you're working in a larger organization, you wanna bring some idea to life, or you see a customer problem every day and you say like we must change this and I have an idea how to improve it. Sometimes it's almost impossible to get something like that again get something to that done. Unblock, the book Unblock is really about it's a book for leaders that want to create better results and better outcomes for them and their teams. And it's a field guide where they can decide, okay, so which element of our organization is blocked the most. So this could indeed be decision making. It could be that their teams are wrestling with meeting overload. Some teams are really have a difficulty prioritizing and have really problematic things around creating focus. Maybe they're working in an organization where people don't take ownership, and the book contains lots of ideas and examples of what you can do to change that and to start improving that. Some of them are definitely inspired by the world of Formula One, but also, I've been practicing this for the last decade and have been unblocking organizations myself. So this is the collection of all the lessons learned from the practice.
Oh, I understand. So you learn from the Formula One, then you help leaders and organizations to improve according to that model, and that leads to change and to faster decision making.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I take inspiration not only from Formula One, because I think every industry has their own bright examples. There's lots of different methodologies and companies out there that are trying things very differently, and they don't look at all like a Formula One team, and still have some interesting lessons to be learned. So yeah, the inspiration source is broad. There's lots of methods and ideas out there, but it's about finding the ones that are most applicable to your organization and team. That is important. So often we have blueprints or fixed models that people try to implement as if it's a silver bullet. We like to say these frameworks with all these licenses and courses and all sort of certifications. Sometimes that goes a bit too far, I think, and you end up with similar problems as you had before after spending a lot of money on those certifications. So I think when we think about unblocking organizations and making them faster, we always have to think about being adaptive and flexible in that as well, like really changing the things that are broken and leaving the things alone that are working really well.
Mhm. I understand. You help to unblock the processes as well. And what I was thinking about when we come back to Formula One is sometimes so for the spectator on the television, it is too fast to even to perceive what is going on. And that
Yeah.
way, you explained it before, you slow down, right? And this can we maybe also implement for developing this. So that means you first, you said this, you practice it, and then you become faster and faster. And the same way in the mental thing,
Yeah.
you practice it, and then you are very good at fast decision making.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's some other. So slowing down is a big part of speeding up. Interestingly enough, like what you said, it's about pausing and observing what's going on, not only around you but also in yourself. Like, what is really happening here? It's something we often skip when we're super busy, but it's often the recommendation we give to leaders if they want to improve. Really take the time to slow down and talk about changing how you work rather than just keep firefighting. But the other thing, like there's other ways to speed up decision making, and I'd love to share one with you. Very often when we think about decisions, we spend a lot of time discussing them, and then maybe getting more data, and maybe sometimes it takes weeks and weeks before you can get a decision or get an approval. And the reason for that is that we treat every decision as if it's the same type of decision. So sometimes but most of the time, most decisions are reversible. We can do something, and then if it's not the right decision, we can go back and change it. There's only a really small percentage of decisions that are irreversible. So that's one thing. And then if you want to get to more action and speed in decision making, the question you can ask when you're making a decision is it safe to try, rather than, or do we all agree? So when you ask, is it safe to try, you're now lowering the bar and say, well, it's not perfect, it's not what I would like, but it's okay, it's safe to try. There won't be a lot of harm if we do it. And it really gets you into action mode, because in the complex world that we're living in, it's very difficult to predict upfront if a decision is the right one. Most of the time, you just have to start doing something to learn and discover what it is that we're learning, especially if you're going into uncharted territory.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree with you about the decisions that we can reverse and the other ones we are committed to. So I learned this the last week, maybe, about that there's a word for it. And so it's the difference between choice. You have the choice, and choosing means I can reverse it. And
Mm-hmm.
when I make really a decision, then I cut off other opportunities, so to say.
Yeah.
And when I'm committed, then I'm not going back, of course. So I
Right.
love what you said about, is it safe to try? And that takes the pressure also from you, that now it stays that way,
Yeah.
right?
And sometimes things are not yet safe to try, but you can maybe make it smaller, or shorten the amount of time that you're going to try something, or reduce the impact of the decision, so you can actually go and do something and learn something. So it's a really different conversation than what you often have in teams.
I love that. So I have another question, of course, for you. You've worked with organizations that function without managers and embrace high levels of autonomy.
Mhm.
What key takeaways can traditional organizations learn from these radical models?
Yeah, I think sometimes we overestimate the need for a manager.
Mhm.
So there's definitely companies out there that are proving at scale, and we're talking about hundreds or thousands of people, that we don't necessarily need a management hierarchy to function. And a management hierarchy has certain advantages, but it also has certain disadvantages. It slows down initiative. People get stuck in meetings, like I said before. You can have politics that makes it hard to get things done. You get people looking up instead of creating value for the customer. So there's lots of disadvantages, and I think what we can learn from the companies that are doing it without managers is that sometimes you don't need a manager. So I've been in situations in traditional organizations where there was one manager stepping down, and I was speaking to the manager of that manager, and she said, "Well, I want to replace him. I want to hire someone new to manage that team." And I was like, "Are you sure that's really necessary? I think if you just have a conversation with the team about, you create a contract about what you expect, about guardrails and working agreements, that team can manage itself. Like, it doesn't necessarily need someone that you can, sometimes you say somebody, you can cut their head off if they're making a mistake, right? That's the traditional thinking of management, that you always have to have one single responsible person. I think those ideas are flawed, and I think it doesn't acknowledge the what we can accomplish as humans if we don't have one manager, right? And if you go even further with that metaphor, imagine you're playing in a band, right? You're making music. Like, does the band have one manager? No, it doesn't. It's a group of people that are trying to create something together. And we often don't think about those things. We in private life, a lot of times we don't have one quote unquote boss, and in work we say we need one, which is not true.
I love that approach. I never thought of it that way. And the companies I work with were always the opposite way you describe. It is like when someone gets fired or leaves the company, they are not replaced, and this is a great problem. Because all the other people feel overwhelmed and they have to replace or do extra work, whatever. But I think what I describe now is the old world. Yes. And now we are transitioning to the new world. And I love what you said, because it reminds me of the quote I once heard, or let's say I learned maybe in my studies. It is that people join companies, but they leave managers. And I assume you know this.
Yeah, having a bad manager is one of the most frustrating things to have. I mean, it can disengage whole groups, and also the opposite is true. Like, if you have a leader that supports you, that gives you opportunity to grow, that coaches you, and gives you actually everything you need to do your work well, that can also makes you stick with the company for a long time. So yeah, it's not at all that I'm against managers. No, absolutely not. But I think we have to rethink the role of leaders, and have leaders that are more enabling their teams and creating the conditions for success, rather than being the ones in charge and giving all the orders.
Yes, absolutely. And there's a difference between managers and leaders. Of course, not every manager is a leader. And then, they are by contract or something, and maybe they are not how's the word, adequate or not appropriate, but they are overwhelmed. And I remember my first role as oh my goodness, this was so, I had for the first time I had to lead a small team, and I was so nervous. I bought all the books I could get about 90 days as the CEO or as whatever I was at that time, and it didn't make me unnervous, so to say. So I love the title of your book, Unblock. And where can we find you when people reach out to you now and they want to work with you?
Yeah, so I'm very active on LinkedIn. So if you look at if you type in my name, Juriaan Kamer, you'll find it. People can find more about the book at unblockbook.net, and it's available on Amazon, so people can find it there as well.
Oh, I love that. And I created an Amazon list for all the amazing books from my podcast guests. Of course, I will put your book up there. Thank you so much for our interview. It was really great. We met on LinkedIn. We met on Podmatch as well, right?
Yeah,
it's
correct.
my two favorite platforms at the moment to connect to people. And and now it's time for the last thoughts. I say always it's the first thoughts now to the people that reach out to you, your first thoughts.
My first thoughts when people reach out to me. I'll just, I don't know. I asked them, what is holding you back from doing the best work of your life? And then we talk about that.
I love that. There's nothing more to say. Please reach out to Juriaan. He's amazing. He shares his wisdom and he's ready to work with you. Thank you. And see you in the next episode. Thank you for tuning in to the Inspired Choice Today podcast. We hope you found today's conversation as enriching as we did. If you're feeling inspired and ready to take the next step in your own journey, I'd love to offer you a free 20-minute consultation. This is a chance to explore any challenges you're facing, get clarity on your goals, or just connect and discuss where you want to go next. Reach out to me directly to schedule your consultation. I'd be honored to support you on your path. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a new episode filled with inspiration, insights, and powerful stories. Until next time, keep making those inspired choices every day.